All right, welcome back, 8th graders, to today's explainer. I'm actually super pumped you're here because today we're going to unlock something incredibly powerful. We are mastering the what, why, and how of historical problem solving. We're going to look at how some of the greatest leaders in history tackled seemingly impossible situations, and more importantly, how you can use their exact strategies in your own everyday life.
So, looking at our agenda today, we're going to build a problem-solving toolkit, go through Step 1, identify the problem, Step 2, consider your options, and Step 3, implement solutions. Then we'll wrap up with why careful planning matters and look at education, morality, and peace.
Before we literally dive into the history books, I want to anchor us in this amazing biblical principle from Proverbs 21:5. It says, "The plans of the diligent lead to profit, as surely as haste leads to poverty." Honestly, this is kind of the ultimate truth when it comes to decision making. Being diligent, actually taking the time to carefully plan and think things through. It beats rushing every single time. Haste just leads to bad choices and poverty, not just with money, but with our relationships and our peace of mind.
All right, Section 1, the problem-solving toolkit, using historical strategies for personal success.
Now, you might be sitting there wondering, why on earth are we looking at the decisions of presidents from literally centuries ago? Well, because these leaders faced massive nation-building choices. But we face big choices too, right? The exact same strategies that kept whole countries from just completely collapsing can actually help you resolve drama with your friends or figure out how to manage your time and resources. So here is your 3-step mental map. Step 1, identify challenges clearly. Step 2, consider your options carefully. And Step 3, make decisions and implement solutions based on evidence. Seriously, if you master these 3 steps, you're going to be able to tackle pretty much anything life throws at you.
Moving on to Section 2. Step 1. Identify the problem. And we're looking at tackling a high-stakes historical crisis.
Okay, so let's see what the very first step of our toolkit actually looks like in the wild. Identifying the problem. We're going to jump into a super high-stakes historical crisis to see how this works. Picture this. It's 1929. The U.S. economy just suddenly, violently collapses. This is the kickoff to the Great Depression. When a massive crisis like that hits, it honestly just feels like this giant, overwhelming wave of disaster. If leaders just threw their hands up and said, well, the economy is ruined, that's way too vague to actually fix. They couldn't just panic. They had to hit pause and figure out exactly what was broken.
They had to take that massive crisis and break it down to define the exact problems. They pinpointed high unemployment, meaning people literally didn't have jobs. They saw bank failures. People's life savings were just vanishing overnight. And they identified reduced spending because nobody was buying anything. By calling out these very specific, exact issues, it actually made it possible to design real solutions. It's like a doctor, right? You can't just cure feeling sick. You have to name the exact disease first.
Which brings us to Section 3. Step 2. Consider your options, weighing choices to prevent disaster.
So once you actually know what the problem is, it's time for Step 2, which is considering your options. This is where we apply that diligence we talked about from Proverbs. Weighing different choices is what keeps us from making panicked, disastrous decisions. Let's look at President Thomas Jefferson. He was facing this massive dilemma with the Louisiana Territory, which was controlled by France at the time. The U.S. desperately needed secure access to the Mississippi River. Now, Jefferson didn't just jump at the very first idea that popped into his head. He mapped out his options. Should he try negotiating a treaty to buy it? Should he just refuse the deal and walk away completely? Or, should he explore military action and just take it by force?
And guys, this is such a brilliant example of why considering your options is a total game changer. By carefully weighing the evidence, instead of just rushing into a super costly war or walking away from a golden opportunity, Jefferson chose to purchase the territory. The Louisiana Purchase was an unbelievable historical success. It literally doubled the size of the nation, all because one leader avoided a hasty choice and thoughtfully evaluated his options.
All right, Section 4. Step 3. Implement solutions, because a good plan requires action.
And that brings us to the final step in our toolkit, actually implementing the solutions. Look, you can identify the problem perfectly, you can pick the absolute best option, but a good plan means absolutely nothing if you don't take action. You have to put in the work. Think about the civil rights movement. The problem was crystal clear: racial segregation and massive injustice. The option they chose was nonviolent protest. But leaders like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., they didn't just sit around in a room drawing up plans. They went out and carefully implemented them. They organized these highly planned boycotts. They coordinated massive marches. They delivered incredibly powerful speeches to actively challenge segregation.
This implementation, it wasn't just random chaos, it was highly structured. And what happened? Well, this careful, diligent execution of a well-thought-out plan grabbed the attention of the entire nation and ultimately forced historic legal changes. So yeah, Actually executing a plan can quite literally change the course of history.
Moving on to Section 5, Why Careful Planning Matters, Reviewing the Practical Application.
Okay, we've seen this toolkit work on a massive, historical scale. Now let's turn the spotlight right back on you. It's time for a rapid-fire review to see how well you're tracking with this. Get ready. Thinking back to our mental map, what is the absolute first step in solving a problem when a crisis hits? Just like those leaders back in 1929. Yep, you have to define the problem clearly. You've got to identify the challenge before you do literally anything else.
All right, next question. Why is it so important to actually consider multiple options, just like Jefferson did? Well, we do it because weighing multiple options prevents those rushed, poverty-inducing decisions. It basically stops us from acting in total haste and making a bad situation even worse.
Now, can you give me one concrete example of a historical problem and its solution from what we talked about today? You might be thinking about how the vague, overwhelming problem of the Great Depression was tackled by targeting specific issues like bank failures, or maybe how the deep injustice of segregation was challenged by implementing planned, nonviolent actions like boycotts and marches.
And what about our guy Jefferson? How did the Louisiana Purchase solve a national need? Remember, by carefully weighing his options and choosing to negotiate, he secured those vital trade routes and peacefully doubled the size of the whole country.
So, finally, what role does planning actually play in problem solving? Think way back to our opening scripture from Proverbs. Planning is the vital bridge between facing a massive challenge and achieving real, profitable success. Seriously, diligent planning is everything.
And finally, Section 6, Education, Morality, and Peace. The HeroesMart Academy Philosophy.
You guys crushed that review. Now, as we wrap things up today, I kind of want to ground us for a second. This whole problem-solving strategy, it's a huge part of the HeroesMart Academy Godly Learner series, but there is a very, very specific reason why we teach this. And the truth is this: education without morality will hurt. I mean, what is the absolute point of being super smart, highly educated, and knowing how to solve all these complex problems if you just keep making bad moral choices that hurt you and the people around you? If you've got the brains of a great leader, but you don't have the moral compass to actually guide your decisions, your so-called solutions are just going to cause more damage.
And that is exactly why we intertwine biblical morality with education. Romans 8:6-7 shares this incredible empirical truth. It promises peace of mind to everyone who keeps their mind spiritual. When you take the sharp, strategic, problem-solving skills we practice today and you combine them with a spiritually grounded moral mindset, you are guaranteed lasting peace. This isn't just some nice theory. It's a proven reality for anyone who genuinely embraces it.
So, I'm going to leave you with this final, slightly provocative question. You now have the exact same problem-solving toolkit that guided some of history's greatest leaders. The real question is, will you choose to keep your mind spiritual and secure your peace? Are you going to intertwine your intelligence with biblical morality? Take everything you learned today, apply it to your own life, and go out there and make choices that actually build a better future. Thanks so much for hanging out with me for this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.